$4.11. That's the difference between the store brand coffee and the one with the nice label. And you were standing in aisle 6 at 20 past 6 on a Monday evening, actually thinking about it. Behind you, a woman glances at your trolley, then at your fleece, 6 years old, one cuff going soft, then away. It's a small look. You've been getting it for years. What she doesn't know, what nobody in this shop knows, is that if you walked out right now and never worked another day, you'd be fine until you were 59. Here's your life from the outside. 41 years old, a flat you've been in for 11 years, which everyone assumed was temporary for the first 4 and stopped asking about after that. A hatchback with 190,000 miles and a small dent in the rear door you have never once fixed. You pack your own lunch, not out of discipline. You just like it. You've been to 2 weddings in 5 years wearing the same jacket. If someone at your office had to guess your salary, they'd probably guess low. That's not an accident. That's a decision you made 9 years ago and have never once regretted. The decision happened at a work dinner in your early 30s. Someone 2 seats down asked what you drive. You said the truth, a 9-year-old hatchback, and you watched something happen in real time. The table's attention slid off you. Not rudely, it just moved on to the guy who had said the name of a car brand instead. And on the walk home, you noticed something that has quietly shaped every year since. It hadn't cost you anything. Not one thing. You went home that night and did not buy a better car. You didn't make a plan or a vow. You just started letting people believe you were doing slightly worse than you were, and waiting to see what it cost you. 9 years later, you're still waiting. Rewind further. Age 33, the first real raise. $71,000 to $96,000. $25,000 more a year. And here's the thing nobody warns you about. You don't have to decide to spend it. The spending decides itself. The flat gets too small. The car gets unreliable. Your friends start suggesting places you'd never have suggested. None of it feels like a choice. It feels like your life catching up to your income. This is the default setting. When income rises, spending rises to meet it, automatically, and it takes an actual deliberate act to interrupt. Not discipline, not sacrifice. Just one moment of noticing the escalator you're standing on. You noticed. You stayed in the flat. And the extra $25,000, most of it anyway, went somewhere it could work. Tuesday. Break room. A colleague, same job title as you, same band, you've seen the salary range, is showing 3 people a photo of his new car on his phone. Someone asks the question everyone always asks, which is not, how much did it cost, but what's the payment? $780 a month. And you do the thing you always do now, quietly, in your head, while nodding along. $780 a month is not $780. Over the 60 months of that loan, it's $46,800. And if instead it went into a plain index fund at an average return, over those same 5 years, it becomes roughly $57,000. So the real price of that car isn't the sticker, it's the $57,000 that will never exist. He's happy. Genuinely, visibly happy. And that's allowed. It's his money. You just want to be clear-eyed about what the trade actually is, because most people never see the second number at all. Wednesday. Family lunch, which means your brother-in-law, who is warm and well-meaning and cannot stop himself. Halfway through, he leans over and tells you, kindly, the way you'd tell someone their shoelace is undone, that you really should think about investing in yourself. A better car, a nicer place. You've got to spend money to make money. And around the table, everyone nods because it sounds true. Nobody at this table knows that the number in your investment account is larger than his mortgage. Nobody is going to know. And here's what took you years to understand. He isn't wrong about spending, he's just describing a different game. Status is a currency. People spend real money to buy it, and the exchange rate is terrible. But it feels like progress because everyone can see it. You didn't beat that market. You just stopped trading in it. You tell him you'll think about it. You pass the potatoes. Thursday, 11 at night, kitchen table. Everyone asleep. You open the account. You don't do this often, maybe once a quarter, because checking it more doesn't change it and mostly just makes you weird about it. $1,432,880. You sit with that for a second. And then the strange thought arrives, the one that actually explains this whole life. Every single dollar of that number exists because it never became a thing. That's the part almost nobody says out loud. Wealth isn't what you have. It's what you didn't convert. The car you didn't buy is in there. The bigger flat is in there. 9 years of nicer jackets are in there. Every purchase is a subtraction from the proof, which means the wealthiest thing about you is, by definition, invisible. You close the laptop. You go to bed. Nothing about your Friday will look any different. Friday is the one that actually hurts. An old friend is organizing something, a weekend away, the sort of thing that costs a bit. And you find out about it afterwards, not maliciously. He tells you, apologetically, that he didn't want to put you in an awkward spot. He's been assuming for years that money's tight for you, because you've spent 9 years letting people assume exactly that. And now the assumption has quietly rearranged your life without asking. This is the honest cost, and it's the part that gets left out of every video about this. Invisible wealth is not free. You pay for it in being misread, in people making decisions about you based on a picture you deliberately gave them. You can be wealthy and left out of things at the same time. You tell him you'd have loved to come. He says he'll ask next time. And you go home wondering, for the first time in a while, whether you've taken this further than you meant to. Saturday morning, your sister calls. Her car has died. Properly died, the kind of dead that comes with a number attached. $2,600, and she's crying on the phone. Not about the car, but about what it means. The loan she'll have to take, the interest, the 6 months of being short. And you say the sentence you have spent 9 years quietly building the ability to say, "Don't take the loan, I've got it." No announcement, no lecture, no repayment plan. You transfer it that afternoon, and you never mention it again. And she does not tell anyone. And nobody at that supermarket, that office, that family table will ever know it happened. This is the whole point, not a number on a screen. The ability to make a bad week stop being a bad year for someone you love, on a Saturday without hesitating. That's what invisible wealth is actually for. You make lunch. It's an ordinary Saturday again, by 2 in the afternoon. Sunday. You're putting the bins out in the same fleece, and your neighbor is at the fence. He's a good guy. For 9 years he has, very obviously and very harmlessly, believed he's doing better than you. The car in his driveway, the extension he built 2 summers ago, the way he explains things to you sometimes. And today he says, in a completely different voice, that he's been made redundant. 3 weeks of severance. He's smiling while he says it, which is somehow worse. And you stand there holding a bin lid, and you do the arithmetic you can't help doing anymore. Your life costs about $64,000 a year. You have $1.43 million. You could never work again for the better part of 2 decades and be entirely fine. He is 3 weeks from a genuine problem. And he has absolutely no idea, and he never will, because you built it exactly that way. And standing at that fence for the first time, you're not sure whether that's a triumph or just a very long silence. So, rewind it. 9 years, and every single brick in that wall is a thing that didn't happen. The car you didn't upgrade at 33, about $94,000 once you count what the payments would have become. The flat you didn't move out of. You stayed 11 years in a place people assumed you'd leave in 4. And the difference between your rent and the next step up, everyone expected, invested, is roughly $210,000. The 9 years of small things, the jackets, the phones, the meals out you genuinely didn't want anyway, call it another $86,000. And the raises, 4 of them, that you let land without letting your life rise to meet them. That's the biggest brick of all. Add it up, and it isn't a miracle, and it wasn't luck, and it definitely wasn't a high salary. It was one decision, made repeatedly, for 9 years, in private. That evening, your sister comes around to say thank you properly, and she asks the question directly. How? And because it's her, you actually answer. 1. When your income goes up, let your life stay exactly where it is for 6 months before you change anything. Not forever. 6 months. Almost everything you'd have bought in week 1, you won't want in month 6. 2. Price things in what they become, not what they cost. $780 a month isn't a payment. It's $57,000 of someone else's future. 3. Pick the small number of things you genuinely care about and spend properly on those, without guilt. This isn't about being miserly. It's about not paying for things whose only function is to be seen. 4. Never explain your finances to people who didn't ask, not to hide it. Just because "I'm doing fine" is a complete sentence and every elaboration costs you something. And 5, and this one took you the longest, decide what the money is actually for. Because a number with no purpose just turns into a habit of not spending, and that's not wealth. That's just fear with a good balance sheet. And then she asks the harder one. She asks about your friend and the weekend away, and whether it's lonely, being read wrong by everyone, on purpose, for 9 years. And you tell her the truth, which is, sometimes. That's the honest trade, and anyone who tells you this life is free is selling you something. But here's what you've settled on. The people who matter, her, a handful of others, they don't need the picture, because they get the actual you. And the people who change how they treat you if they knew the number were never really treating you to begin with. So you called your friend back on Friday night, and you told him you'd have loved to come, and that money isn't the reason to leave you out. You didn't tell him the number, you just corrected the assumption. Turns out you can be private without being a stranger. You just have to actually say something occasionally. Sunday night, same flat, same fleece. You checked, the cuff is definitely going now. Tomorrow you'll go back to the same job, drive the same hatchback with the same dent, and stand in the same aisle 6, deciding about the same $4.11. And someone will look at your trolley and quietly file you away, as a man who's doing okay, but not great. Nothing about your life will look any different tomorrow than it did 9 years ago. That's not the sacrifice. That's the entire strategy. And the whole point is that you're the only one who ever needed to know it worked. If this one landed, subscribing is free, which is very much in the spirit of the thing.